Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The number of refugees who've entered Europe this year has topped 1 million. The International Organization for Migration says the tally marks a fourfold increase over last year. It's the greatest exodus of people since World War II. The vast majority have arrived by sea. Nearly 3,700 people have drowned or remain missing after attempted sea crossings. Most of the refugees are from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, countries ravaged by war. Speaking before the UN Security Council Monday, UN High Commissioner for Refugees Antonio Guterres said people who reject Syrian refugees are the best allies of extremists like the self-proclaimed Islamic State.
Those that reject Syrian refugees, and especially if they are Muslim, are the best allies of the propaganda and the recruitment of extremist groups. We must not forget that, despite the rhetoric we are hearing these days, refugees are the first victims of such terror, not its source. They cannot be blamed for a threat which they are risking their lives to escape.
In news from Afghanistan, 6 U.S. soldiers have been killed by a suicide bomber at a motorcycle in Bagram. 2 other soldiers and a U.S. contractor were wounded. Afghan police may also have been injured. The Taliban has claimed responsibility. It was the deadliest attack on Americans in Afghanistan since August. It comes amidst fierce fighting in southern Helmand province, where the Taliban has overrun a key district. Meanwhile, in other news on Afghanistan, Human Rights Watch has called for the U.S. military bombing of a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz to be investigated as a possible criminal act. In a letter to Defense Secretary Ash Carter, Human Rights Watch says, quote, "If the current investigation does not include a criminal inquiry, we call on you to order a criminal investigation." The attack killed 42 people. Doctors Without Borders has called for an independent probe. Human Rights Watch has also accused the United States of flouting the laws of war by failing to investigate unlawful strikes carried out by the U.S.-backed Saudi-led coalition targeting Houthi rebels in Yemen. Human Rights Watch says the coalition carried out at least 6 apparently unlawful airstrikes in residential areas of the Yemeni capital Sana'a this fall, killing 60 civilians. Joe Stork, Deputy Middle East Director for Human Rights Watch, said, quote, "How many civilians will die in unlawful airstrikes in Yemen before the coalition and its U.S. allies investigate what went wrong and who is responsible? Their disregard for the safety of civilians is appalling," he said. Despite a ceasefire, scores of people have been killed in Yemen over the past week. To see Democracy Now!'s Sharif Abdel-Quddus's report on what's been happening in Yemen, he's just back from a few weeks there. Go to democracynow.org. Iraqi forces have reportedly stormed the center of the key city of Ramadi, which fell to the self-proclaimed Islamic State in May. The attempt to retake Ramadi began in November. Iraqi officials have vowed to clear ISIL from the city within 72 hours. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham suspended his bid for the Republican presidential nomination. In a video message, Graham said his campaign has successfully increased support for ramping up the war against ISIS.
4 months ago, at the very first debate, I said that any candidate who did not understand that we need more American troops on the ground in Iraq and Syria to defeat ISIL was not ready to be commander-in-chief. At that time, no one stepped forward to join me. Today, most of my fellow candidates have come to recognize this is what's needed to secure our homeland.
In Texas, grand jury has failed to indict anyone in the death of Sandra Bland, the 28-year-old African-American woman found dead in her Waller County jail cell in July. Bland was arrested July 10th by Texas State Trooper Brian Encinia, who accused her of failing to signal a lane change. Dashcam video of her arrest shows Encinia forcibly removing Bland from her car and threatening to, quote, light her up. She can later be heard accusing police of slamming her head into the ground and saying she has epilepsy, to which Trooper Encinia replies, good. Bland had recently moved to Texas to start a job at Prairie View A&M University, her alma mater, but she was found hanging from a trash bag in her cell 3 days after her arrest. Her family and supporters have disputed authorities' claim her death was a suicide. Speaking Monday, Special Prosecutor Daryl Jordan said the grand jury will reconvene next month.
It has been a very, very long day. for us as well as the grand jury. After presenting all the evidence as it relates to the death of Sandra Bland, the grand jury did not return an indictment. The grand jury also considered things that occurred at the jail and did not return an indictment. There are other issues that the grand jury is still considering, and they will take up those issues when we return next month.
Sandra Bland's family says they've been shut out of the grand jury process and only learned of Monday's decision from news reports. In a statement, Democratic presidential candidate, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, said, quote, "There's no doubt in my mind that Sandra Bland, like too many African Americans who die in police custody, would be alive today if she were a white woman. We need to reform a very broken criminal justice system," he said. In Maryland, a judge has scheduled the retrial of Baltimore police officer William Porter in the death of Freddie Gray for June 13th. Porter was the first of 6 officers to be tried over Gray's death. A family attorney says Gray's spine was 80% severed at his neck from fatal injuries sustained in police custody in April. Officer Porter's case ended in a mistrial last week after a jury deadlocked on charges including involuntary manslaughter. Porter's new trial date is after those of the other 5 officers, meaning he will likely decline to testify at those trials, presenting a hurdle for prosecutors who would hope to call him as a key witness. In Nevada, a 24-year-old woman is facing murder charges after police say she intentionally ran her car onto a sidewalk in the Las Vegas Strip Sunday, killing 1 person and injuring dozens more. Lakeisha Holloway told authorities she was under extreme stress because she had been chased by security guards out of parking lots where she was trying to sleep in her car. She'd been living in her car with her 3-year-old daughter for about a week. Meanwhile, the Mall of America has sued 8 activists with Black Lives Matter Minneapolis in an attempt to block a protest scheduled for Wednesday over the fatal police shooting of Jamar Clark. Part of the suit requests the activists delete social media posts promoting the protest. Last year, a Black Lives Matter protest at the mall drew over 2,000 people. Police have said Jamar Clark was shot after a scuffle with officers who responded to a report of an assault. But multiple witnesses have said Clark was shot while handcuffed. A manhunt is underway for an 18-year-old white Texas teenager convicted of killing 4 people in a drunk driving crash in 2013. Ethan Couch was not sentenced to any time in jail after a trial where a psychologist claimed he had affluenza, meaning his wealthy background purportedly prevented him from understanding the consequences of his actions. Couch was sent to an expensive rehab facility instead. After he missed a check-in with his probation officer, officials are concerned Couch may have fled the country. They're also searching for his mother, who may have fled with him. In Richmond, California, police have arrested a white man accused of building homemade explosive devices in order to bomb local Muslims. William Chelly was arrested on Sunday after police said he threatened members of the Islamic Society of West Contra Costa County. Chelly is a vocal supporter of Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump, who has called for banning Muslims from entering the United States. In October, Chelly posted on social media that he would, quote, follow Trump to the end of the world. The Council on American Islamic Relations has released a new report finding a greater frequency of vandalism and other acts targeting mosques this year than in any other year on record. Of 71 incidents reported this year, 29 occurred after the November 13th attacks in Paris. Meanwhile, President Obama has accused Donald Trump of exploiting the anxieties of blue-collar men. In an interview with NPR, Obama said the combination of demographic changes, flatlining wages, and other economic hurdles, quote, mean that there's going to be potential anger, frustration, fear, some of it justified, but just misdirected. I think somebody like Mr. Trump is taking advantage of that, President Obama said. Comedian Bill Cosby has filed a lawsuit against model Beverly Johnson, accusing her of falsifying her claim Cosby drugged and tried to rape her in the 1980s. Last week, Cosby sued 7 of his other accusers for defamation. Cosby is accused of drugging and raping scores of women over multiple decades. More than 50 women have come forward with allegations against him. Meanwhile, another high-profile figure accused of sexual abuse, musician R. Kelly, walked walked out of a live interview Monday after a host asked him about repeated accusations that he sexually abused minors. HuffPost Live host Caroline Modarassi-Tirani questioned him about the claims.
What do you say to the multiple fans, the many fans who are watching and listening that say there have been multiple accusations against you, against young women in Chicago, and they are concerned about your past and that's impacting them from purchasing your music sales?
I love them all. It doesn't matter who they are. If they hate me, they love me, they want to destroy me, whatever, I love them all. And I love you too.
You don't need to give me any of your love, sir.
I love everybody.
The Obama administration's lifted its blanket ban on blood donations by gay men, saying they can now donate blood, but only if they haven't had sex with another man in the past 12 months. The Food and Drug Administration said it made the decision in response to the latest science on HIV transmission. But critics say the ban is still biased. Colorado Congressmember Jared Polis, who co-chairs a caucus of openly gay Congress members, told Reuters it's ridiculous and counter to the public health that a married gay man in a monogamous relationship can't give blood, but a promiscuous straight man who has had hundreds of opposite-sex partners in the last year can, Jared Polis said. And in Ohio, Republican lawmakers have announced plans to introduce legislation requiring women who have miscarriages or abortions to specify burial or cremation arrangements for their fetal or embryonic tissue. Indiana and Arkansas have recently passed similar requirements. The move comes after Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine spent months investigating Planned Parenthood following heavily edited anti-choice videos surrounding Planned Parenthood's donation of fetal tissue to medical researchers. As in multiple other investigations, Ohio turned up nothing. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United Nations
Hi, I'm Amy Goodman. I want to thank you for tuning in to Democracy Now! We are so grateful to our fans and followers for being a part of the daily conversation. By choosing a news source that's committed to the truth, you're carrying the message of independent media, reaching hundreds of thousands of people every day. In these times of war and elections, we need a media not sponsored by corporations that profit from war, but a media that's truly independent, funded by you. Democracy Now! Is not paid for by the weapons manufacturers, the insurance industry, or the oil, gas, coal, or nuclear companies. We don't take advertising or corporate underwriting dollars. That means we rely on your donations to make our daily independent news hour possible. We need your support today to keep bringing you the hard-hitting, in-depth reporting you've come to expect 5 days a week. Visit democracynow.org, or you can call 888-999-3877. That's 888-999-3877 to make your holiday gift to Democracy Now! Today. Thanks so much for sharing Democracy Now! Stories all year long.